Hi, folks. Welcome back to Sparkle on Substack with me, Claire Venus. I'm so excited to be chatting to Amie today. Welcome, Amie.
Thank you for having me, Claire. What an honor.
Oh, and you're just fresh back from a book tour. Like, congratulations. That must have been
Thank
amazing
you.
to be with your book, out in the world with your book, overseas with your book. How's it all been?
It's been unbelievably beautiful,
Mm.
simultaneously hard, simultaneously like everything good and everything difficult all at once, which is such a big like that's just how we to describe the creative journey. But yeah, amazing. Like what an honor to get to take my book around to these incredible cities all over the world.
Oh, so beautiful. And I've been watching it through the socials. You're so good at sharing with us and making us feel like we're part of it all.
Thank
So
you.
I'm so excited for this conversation. But before we get into it all, could you introduce yourself just in case there is anyone
Yeah, of
listening who hasn't
course.
heard of you in your practice? I'd love them to know a bit more about you.
Of course. So my name is Amie McNee. I'm an author, and first and foremost, I'm a fiction author. So I tell stories. And on my journey of writing my stories, I also started talking about the creative journey and what it was like to take my art so seriously, to take writing so seriously. And I simultaneously to building my fiction career, built this like beautiful, unexpected career of being a non-fiction author as well. So I write a lot about the creative experience and I speak a lot about the creative experience. And my latest book, We Need Your Art, is non-fiction about how important and integral creativity is to our lives and why we should be taking it very, very seriously. So I have these two beautiful realms of non-fiction and fiction. But yeah, first and foremost, I'm a writer. I love my words. And so I'm very excited to talk about everything that you talk about today.
Substack stuff. Yeah, yeah. So I was so excited when you arrived on Substack because it feels like a seamless fit, right? But obviously behind the scenes, we're always working out, okay, like, is this the right platform for me? If I do this here, will it be a blog? Will it be a newsletter? So I'd love just a bit of that origin story around
Yeah,
how
I'd
you
love to tell
decided
it.
I'm gonna arrive here and this is what I'm using it for because it's the thing people get most stuck about with Substack. So yeah, I'd love to hear that.
I'm going to be very honest and say I resisted it for about a year. And
Yeah.
James, my business partner, and he's also a writer, was like, Amie, I really think you should be on this app. And I was really hesitant to, and as so many people are, giving my newsletter away to another app. You know, we've been told so often as creators, like your newsletter, like your email list should be yours. Like, don't put it on another website, like have it privately be yours. And so I was really protective over it. And I was also doing so much other long form stuff at the time. I was like, I just don't know if I want to do this big shift. It can feel like a big shift.
Mm-hmm.
But probably around a year ago now, or just under a year ago, I was like, you know what? I'm really struggling to build my email list. I already have so many beautiful offerings, and constantly telling people to sign up to my email list is just one more thing I'm asking my beautiful community to do. And people just like, it was the last thing on their mind. So I was like, let me have a play with this app. And like, just like love at first sight. James is always laughing at me that I took so long to get over there. And he pestered me that whole year. He was like, get on this app. And I was like, no. And he was right. And that is so annoying. So I
So yeah,
transferred
so
it all
you
over.
you were there. So you were like, I'm on the app. And so it was an app-based experience for you to start with, like a phone-based app
No,
experience, or
that's a
did you
great,
go on the
yeah, as
desktop?
I feel like as many people have a bit of confusion with this, and I did too. I think I got both, and I was
Mm.
like, the UI still kind of confuses me on both of them, and like what you can do on the desktop, what you can do on the app, still gets to me a little bit. But I don't remember which one I was up first. I'm guessing I to pull all my emails over, I would have started on the desktop.
Yes, yeah.
So and I always write it on the I always write my Substacks on my desktop computer, so on my laptop. So I think
Yeah.
yeah, it would have been on my computer.
Beautiful, yeah. And I think because it Substack's shifted and changed a lot and given us a lot more
Mm,
options with the app over time. So now there is a lot more in your pocket that you can do as an editor, as a creator. But I feel like there is something for me about, yeah, opening the desktop and just having that trust that it's going to work. It's not going to
yes,
glitch. It's not going to
I
lose my
know.
work. Like it's that bit, isn't it? Where it's like, this is my process. It's been my process for 3 years and it works. So I'm going to do it that way. But
I
yeah, I
completely
think
agree. I feel
the
like
app
so
is like,
often. Oh, sorry, Claire.
sorry, no, that's fine. I was just going to say the app for me was always the consuming part, right?
That's
So,
what I was
like when
about to
I was
say.
ready to read, it was like
Yeah,
I read on the app. That's what I do on the app and I create on the desktop.
that's exactly what I was going to say. I say I was. I consume on the app, I create at my computer.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, there's something about it. You don't book flights on your phone, you book flights on your computer, and you don't write
Right.
essays on your phone, you write essays on your computer. It just feels
Yeah.
safer.
Yeah. Just feel secure with that. And I know yesterday's essay, you were saying this is actually part of my journaling pages, but I've found a way to bring it to you. And I absolutely loved the honesty and the invitation in that because I was like, oh, this is going to feel different. And it did feel
Mhm.
different. It felt like a peek behind the curtain. And also like that honesty that you're so beautiful with, where it's like, this is me arriving, like landing back after the book tour, So it's not like we've got to turn up to Substack and something's got to be edited for weeks. Like if that's your gig and that's what you want to do, that's cool. But you can just say, I wrote this morning and now it's here. Now I've
Yeah.
put it on the internet for you all to read and be a part of.
For me, this has been the approach with Substack that I think, for most people is going to be the best. Like, and I speak to a lot of creatives who really want to take their time. And obviously, we've got this huge migration of like professional journalists coming over. And I think there is this energy of like the perfect essay that's coming across a Substack. But I mean, I look at me, like I need mess in my life.
We want that. Yeah, we want some
And
mess.
so have I want Substack to have a culture of like it's okay to just write it, post it. Like we don't need to be, poring over every detail. This isn't a book. And I've spoken to many authors who are really struggling with like writing every Substack like it is a book. And like
Mm,
this is not what this is.
mm,
And even though, again, it's your choice if you want to take it that seriously, that's totally fine. But it's going to be so time consuming for you, so energy consuming for you. And also like I truly believe that the impact it makes is it doesn't give the percentage you want it to give. When you pour over work like that, when you're a perfectionist about it, it's not impacting people that much more or more at all.
mm, mhm.
I know that some of my messiest, most chaotic essays have profoundly moved people, way more than the ones that I've really, really tried at. And isn't that always the way? It's so frustrating. But I love this culture and I want to encourage this culture of just we don't need to take it too seriously.
Mhm, mhm. That is a beautiful invite and permission slip because I feel like because of the history of Substack, because it was a platform for writers and that's what they called it.
Mm,
And then they shifted to it's a new engine for culture. So there's a rub there between professional writer and self-expression, and there's so much nuance in it all. And like it's like this huge, big scale of creative practice. And I feel like when I showed up, I was like, I want you guys to stay creative in whatever way that feels good to you. So we're looking for the feel good part of it first, forget what the platform is or is not or how they describe themselves because it's actually just a platform that really works. Like that's what I wanted to say after having been on WordPress and like constantly breaking it. So for me, it was like, yes, this works. And the mailing list point is a really good point because a lot of creators when they're starting out like they do want space to test, and if they're signing up for a monthly subscription to pay for a newsletter list, that's an expense. They might not have the money for that, or they might not have the self-worth to think, yeah, I'm going to invest in this for
mm.
myself, whereas it's free to use Substack, so it's a nice place to play that way as well.
It's so lovely. It's so low stakes. It's been delicious to me. I've absolutely loved it. And, for a lot of people who are hesitant to getting on, and I speak to so many, I have probably a conversation about Substack every day from a creator saying, I
Yeah.
don't know whether I should go on or not. And I think a lot of that fear is that there is that culture of, oh, I'm not a writer, or I'm not a professional, or I'm not good at spelling. And I really just want to challenge you to put that all to the side and just start using this platform however the fuck you want to use this platform. It is
Yes.
yours to delight in. It is like it is a blank page for you to use as an artist, whatever sort of artist
Mm.
you are. And
Mhm.
I've seen some incredible people start taking up space there who, have perhaps been told all their lives that they shouldn't be a writer because they have no spelling or grammar, education, because they aren't very well educated, because they don't weren't good at English in school, but they're taking up space on this platform and they're having their voice be heard. And these people have world-changing ideas, and I'm so glad they have a platform that they can take up space on.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And I think being able to self-express, sometimes that does go into the visual as well, or into the audio or into the video. And I found
It's
when
so
I
cool.
yeah, and when I started to express in that way, there was new levels unlocked in my creativity. And I really wanted to get into a bit of that with you as well, because you strike me as confident. You can hold space in person. You've written a book, like you work in lots of different ways. You've had your YouTube out there as well. Like, and I watched a few of those early videos when you first moved to the UK, and I was like, I love this excitement for the UK. It's so fun. Like, so it feels like you let yourself express how you want to express. And I'd love to just understand more of where that comes from in you, Amie. Like, is that just easy? Does it feel easeful? Does it feel like an experiment? Like, how does it feel?
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question, Claire. No one's ever really asked me that before. Um, so writing was always my go-to. But as I've gone along, and especially as, these different apps like allowed you to play with different ways of expressing yourself, I've just been curious about it.
Mhm.
And, sometimes I think maybe I'm a better speaker than I am writer. And that's kind of vaguely upsetting because I want to be a writer, not a speaker. But like I just discovered that I can hold space with, my verbal words. And so
Mhm.
on Substack, now I get to play, I do audio as well as, writing out my essays. And my audios are often really different because I'll go on tangents and I get to add more to what I'm saying. And it's like an entirely different art form that I stumbled upon because I
Mm.
learned to start practicing to my stories on Instagram when I was, how long ago would that have been? Like 7 years ago, I started doing that. And I realized that I enjoy expressing myself through like speaking. And then I've played with video, and I'm not anywhere near as confident on video, like actually like making content with video, but it's so much fun. And so I think a lot of the times when we have these new apps that come along, they can feel intimidating because you're like, well, maybe I'm not going to be good at all these different ways that I can share myself. But you get to be curious about it and you get to learn. And maybe you're going to discover that this is absolutely the way you like to articulate your ideas.
It's a beautiful cue, isn't it? And I feel like in that sort of creative practice, giving ourselves space and staying with something. So we've seen platform shift and change, like that happens, and we've accepted that. But there's become this kind of line of mistrust. So I have this a lot. So, people will say, well, what if, what if, what if? And I'm like, yeah, but that's okay because we've learned that. We've learned to shift and change with platforms. And we know that through that, we'll find other ways and other ways to kind of show up. So, where I'm at now, so I've just started like a weekly, very short podcast, which is like less than 10 minutes. And I've called it the Creative Spark. But that idea has come from showing up for like all the time that I have. Like,
It
so,
was never going to just land in your lap having done
mm,
nothing,
mhm.
experimentation and sucking at stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's where our best ideas come.
Yeah, yeah, allowing it to be, like you say, messy, but also allowing that sort of, it's like a push-pull with failure because I think failure is not real. I think failure is just this thing that we reflect back that we've done like wrong or we wanted it to be different or whatever. But in that space, in that rub, in that energy, you're like, oh, but okay, like I felt like that. And then what happens next? So yeah, it's like
Mm.
that. What happens next? Dot, dot, dot. What do I want to do next? And what I'm seeing a lot of, if people have been maybe on 6 months, a year, maybe longer, they've like boxed themselves in and they're like dry. They're like, oh, this is what I do on a Monday, and this is what I'm like. You don't have to stick to that. You're gonna just take people with you, right? So if you feel like publishing on a Thursday, great. If you feel like adding a podcast, like give it a go and say, I don't know, I'm trying it. Like I might do six. Like just yeah, have fun with it.
It's such an interesting balance because I think so many of us need structure, but then when we overstructure, we lose so much of our creative power, or we do end up going dry. And I think,
Mm.
I do it all the time. I'm always like, Substacks will be done on Thursday. No, they maybe were done once on a Thursday, like
Yeah.
I know personally after, and it's taken me years to understand how I work, that a lot of rules and a lot of structure what the world tells me I need, but it is absolutely not what I need, and I won't do it. I don't have that. It doesn't serve me, it doesn't help me, and it doesn't make me create. Like I'm not more creative when I have a very disciplined structure. I have to I have to have their very loose forms. Like I know I want to have a Substack out once a week, and it's a bummer if I don't hit it, but
Yeah.
and I often don't. But that gives me more freedom and more ability to play and to explore and to see what comes up.
And beating all of that. There was a really interesting post you did once where you were sort of sharing that you'd forgotten to do your morning journaling, and you were like, okay. So that happened. A whole day went by and I just somehow didn't do it on the day. And I loved it. I was like, yes, because we are in it, of course, and we're committed to creative practice. But then something happens and like we're in another space and we go, wait, what? Like, because
Yeah,
it just because the sun rises and falls again doesn't mean that we have to plug into the day in certain ways. And I love that there was a
exactly.
permission slip around. That was beautiful.
Oh, I know every time I speak about it now, I'm like, I've been journaling every day since April 16th, 2018, except for one day, and it was a regular day, and I completely forgot about it.
It's just so beautiful. My husband meditates every day, and I didn't realize this. He kept it to himself, but he'd like done the sort of 365. He'd done the 500 like days straight, and then he made himself not meditate so that he didn't say it because he was like, otherwise it's just my ego telling everybody that I've
Ah,
med. And I was like, but babe, like you like meditating, you're allowed, you know what? Like it was just wild to me,
no,
and
that is
he never said
interesting.
anything. So I was like, oh, maybe there's something in there where you're like your ego's going, you know what, you
Yeah.
haven't, and it's fine
And
anyway.
it's
Like it
totally
doesn't matter.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I love that I missed a day. You know, it was completely
Mhm.
by accident. I literally woke up in the middle of the night. Like I was had journaled like 2,300 days in a row at that point. I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, I forgot it.
Something's
And
wrong. Yeah.
but you know, literally meant nothing. You know, I
Yeah.
think creatives, we over police ourselves because we're so afraid we're going to let ourselves down, and because also I think we haven't been taught how it is. We haven't been given the space actually to figure out how we like to work. So we police ourselves and try and make ourselves hit certain standards that are not our own standards, and we rob us of creative joy. We rob us of creative ideas. Like we make it an incredibly dry process. When in fact, I think the artist's job is to do things however the fuck we want to do them.
See what happens and when. And
Mm.
that leads me ne neatly into a question I really wanted to ask about environmental influence, right? Like you guys moved to the UK, and so I'm watching, I live on the Northumberland coast, so I know roughly like where you guys are, and I'm like, that's a cool choice. Like that's a cool choice. But there was obviously something in you where you were like, yeah, I'm gonna go there. And I wonder if there were any surprises both in your creative practice or if your creative practice was an anchor or if things have shifted and changed since then. Like, have you seen any new energy come in for you guys? Like, how's it been?
We've never, both me and James have never been more creative than since we've moved to the UK. And I think
Wow.
there is definitely lots of factors going on there. We're far away from everyone we know. And so there's been an element of isolation that has allowed us to really delve into our books. Um, but also, I mean, I write at the moment historical fiction based in England. And for
Mhm.
me to get to write in these areas, which still have so much of the
Yeah.
worlds that I'm writing about, like outside my door, like, you know, I'm looking across at a well right now, and I bet you it would be 16th, maybe 15th century, like it's old as shit.
Mm.
That's where I write. And there's something very beautiful about being in the land where my stories are told. I think we have found routine here that we were never able to find in Australia. We also have space here. We're living in a cottage in the UK. We were living in a one bedroom apartment, which only had two rooms. And so we were very on top of each other. Like space really matters to me.
Mm. Hmm.
And I always used to try and I was always careful that I didn't overvalue space. It wasn't like the reason why I wasn't getting my work done. I always wanted to be a storyteller and I was going to do that whether I was in the right space or not. But I feel the difference when I'm in a space. And I really do believe that creatives, like space matters to us. Where we create matters.
That's really beautiful. And so, because in the UK there are so many different places quite accessible, you know, the train line is really great, you know, in terms of where you can get to and where you can visit. And I always find this like when I speak to my American clients and they're coming to Europe, they're like, and then we're going to go from Edinburgh and we're going to hop over to Paris. And I'm like, wait, like what? Like, you know, it's just everything feels more possible. And it
Mm,
reminds me of how small the country is. And I wonder
it's
if you have.
tiny.
Yeah, I wonder if you have taken any trains anywhere and gone, you know what, like I'm just going on an artist date. I'm going to get on the train, or maybe the book tours enabled some of that in you,
Yeah.
like how that's all felt.
Yeah, everything feels so close. Like we come from Australia, like it's huge, a mammoth, mammoth country.
Mhm.
And you can't really go anywhere. Like trying to get from one side of Sydney to the other will take you hours. And so for us to get to leave and go on a little trip for a few hours and be somewhere so entirely different is so beautiful to us. So yeah, we've had lots of beautiful little opportunities to do that. One of my favorite ones was I was lucky enough to chair Florence Given's UK book tour. And so I went with Floss, who's an amazing writer and a Substacker, to Leeds, to Nottingham, to Bristol. Like I did a whole like little tour with her all around the country and saw places I'd never seen before, and so creatively invigorating. I really, really love this country, and I know that the Brits aren't one to speak highly of where they live, but I really have a huge soft spot for it.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. Yeah, but I mean, we do like it. Like, we'd like to be somewhere where we feel like there's more expansive thinking. So that's the rub at the moment. And obviously, not going to get into that too much on this podcast, but I think, it's hard sometimes. Like, I do feel a clash because I feel very like universal in my approach. And sometimes I feel like
Mm.
with Britain, it just can feel a bit small-minded still, and that feels hard.
So
But
funny
yeah,
that you
it's
say that.
beautiful.
Because do you know what I say? I say Sydney is way too small-minded for me, and I feel when I come here that there is so much broader thinking. So how ironic that
Mm.
I mean, it might be where I am. I live in Oxfordshire, in near Oxford. There's a lot of I don't know. I have no idea, but how interesting that you say that because I go back to Sydney and I was just in Sydney for the book tour, and I'm so uninterested in what people are talking about, and I feel their world is quite a lot smaller than here, and I
Mhm.
feel people here read books. Australians don't read.
Okay.
And like there's that kind of cultural difference. So I'm really interested that you say that.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating, isn't it? And I think it's just there's this calling to take up
Mm,
more space. So I feel it like I just feel it for me, but I feel it for my daughter as well. The work that I'm doing on that generational line of like seeing how she is able to express herself in a way that I wasn't. And then also seeing how schools are here in terms of like
mm.
how they honor creativity and they don't really the
No,
way
they
that they
don't.
should
Yeah.
do. So it's like I had it honored in me for sure. Like that
Mm.
creative spark was honored. And that's where I am. That's why I am here today. So yeah, so that's curious to me as well. Like the freedom, both in environment, but also in schooling. Like I just
In
think there's.
education, yeah. Do you know what? I
Mhm.
have an inkling that like maybe it's because both of us are trailblazers and wherever we go,
Well, thanks very much.
But no, but
Yeah.
wherever we go, we will find that people aren't thinking as big as we think because
Mm,
we go first, and
there's a vision.
that's that torchbearer like cross to bear is that
Yeah.
when you do want to live life very fully and when you want to
Mm,
question things and when you want to
mm.
like when you want to say, wait, could there be a different way? Like that you're going to stand out in all environments, in all communities. And I think it's almost if you were in a space where it was like none of this was questioned, it would be beautiful, but it would also mean that like nothing needs to change.
There's no rub there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. That's actually like a very affirming for me. Thank you
Mm.
for that. I wanted to ask you about your relationship with your book, Amy. So I have your book, and literally every time I open it, I'm like, okay, like, and I'm like off for like a whole day, maybe like a week. Like I've not had it that long, and I'm like, I've read 2 pages, and I'm like, okay, like I'm gonna take. So I feel like when I heard you were writing a book, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna finish that in a weekend. It's gonna be that sort of book, and I'm like, oh no, like it's gonna take me 6 months. I don't know whether that was your intention or you are just like putting it out there to let us receive it the way that we're receiving it. Like, what do you feel about it here and now after you've
Mm.
like had it received a little bit in the world?
I've had so many different people tell me of really different ways that they're experiencing it. I had one person the other day tell me that they use it almost like I don't know, almost biblically. They like open it up in the morning and they just let the gods choose the page and they like read a few lines and then they shut it and they're like, that's all I'm taking with me today. Um, and I've had other people who have devoured it in a few hours. And so people are obviously experiencing it however they need to experience it. And I'm
Mm.
so grateful for that. And like, I love this idea that my little book, she's got a life of her own now and she is in relationship with creative people all over the world. And she's speaking to them in the way they need to be spoken to, and taking care of them in a very specific way. And I love that.
That's really beautiful. And you wrote a beautiful post around the behind the scenes of the book deal, which I'll link to in the show notes. And I read that with my jaw on the floor. So I've got a best friend in publishing. Like we talk about publishing a lot. Like I know about publishing, and then I read your post and I was like, oh, wow.
Mm.
Because it was that felt experience, like what you were sharing with us, is all the whole kind of overview of how that all felt and the breakdown, like the black and white breakdown, because everyone feels like they want the book deal. And my goal's always been, I'm going to write a book a year for 10 years. I'm in year 5 and I don't care about how it gets published. Like I'm not, I'll do the research and I'll be interested and curious and all that stuff, but I just want a book a year for 10 years. So we'll just
Mm.
go with it. So being able to read that and absorb that level of honesty, and I know it will have felt vulnerable to do that because it's the internet, right? Like the internet just is quirky, and it has people on it. So yeah, like thank you for writing that firstly. But did you always know you were going to share the figures and how that process was? Did it just come to you? Like what was that like?
Yeah, so I've always really wanted to be incredibly transparent about my creative journey because I think as someone who wanted desperately to be a professional writer, I felt like there was a like absolutely no information for me anywhere. So
Mm,
I've shared, I have a Substack post where I share every in and out of my finances, like how do I make money? How do I make it work as a professional artist? And then as I got this publishing deal with Penguin, which is my first traditional publishing deal, I beforehand I was self-publishing and doing everything on my own, and as a full-time writer. But as I got this publishing deal, I was like, and I experienced all of it. And like I felt like I was very prepared
mm,
for a publishing experience. I have like spoken to so many traditionally published authors. I've worked with so many traditionally published authors. It's like I was very aware of how this industry works. Nothing could have prepared me for that shit. And
mm,
um I was like, we need more transparency and we
mhm,
need radical transparency. And I think that, there's a lot that's wrong with the publishing industry, a lot. And they know that I think this. And they were, when they took me on and I signed that contract, they knew I was a liability. They knew that I was going to be someone who spoke about the issues that I found there. And they knew that I was going to be someone who rocked the boat. And so even though I've never seen anyone share like I've shared ever, and even though the industry is like famously secretive, and I was shitting myself before I shared it. I thought, this is the most generous thing I could do.
mm,
I felt almost like it was my job.
mhm, mhm,
So I shared my uh, my advance, I shared my sales figures, I shared it all. And it's been incredibly liberating, very, very scary, but liberating.
That is really beautiful, and it's really beautiful to receive that. And I'm sure everybody listening will receive it at that frequency as well. That's really, yeah, it's your job. It's that this is what
Yeah,
I'm
it
here
felt
to
like my
do.
job. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, there was a lot of conversations with James beforehand, especially about my advance because I got a very good advance.
Yeah.
And how will it be perceived? Will it be perceived like bragging? Will it be making people feel less? But at the end of the day, we were like, no, this is an advance I got. And that means that there's money for them to pay other authors the amount of money they paid me. And so we need to talk about it. And I think even if, I got a $10,000 book advance for my fiction, so a much, much smaller book advance. And I was like, we share that too. Like we share it all. And I think the more we can communicate, the more powerful we become. And I think writers have been robbed of a lot of our power, a lot of our negotiating power, a lot of our just like value by a lot of these
Mm,
systems. And so if we
mhm.
can have these conversations, I think we reclaim a lot of power. If we're on each other's sides, I think we reclaim a lot of that power.
Yeah, for sure. And I've been like that with my Substack journey as well for those reasons, because when I first started writing and I'd forgotten this, there wasn't any figures online. So you couldn't even tell how many people were subscribed to your Substack, which didn't matter and is actually really nice, having come from social media metrics and
Mm,
like that whole thing. And so you couldn't tell. And so I was looking for the language that people used where they're like, oh, like I'm welcoming over 100 of you. And I was doing the maths, right? I was going, okay, so if this person has this many subscribers
mm.
that are paying and they're charging this much a month and Substack take 10%, and like, how was that all working? And then I was representing it back to the community and saying, this is what's happening over here. And then carefully sort of positioning if this is an income stream for you, if you are curious about charging for your art and you want to try that, or you want to put this behind the paywall, or you want to put a PDF behind the paywall, whatever you want to do. I was just giving them all of those options. Like I was like a mad sort of squirrel, just like
I
squirreling
love
away
it.
for like nuts and finding all the bits and being like, this is what's happening over here, and this is what we can do. And of course, now it is a bit more transparent. Like there's a few more ways that we can tell, but it is still maths and it is still hard to
Yeah.
do.
And what you do is like incredibly generous. And I love that again, like making sure we all know what we are able what we can do what we if
Mm,
what the choices are like you
yeah.
it's such a generous thing to do. And I think, and it is a little cynical, but I'm always going to be very protective of the artist because we live in a culture that always wants to rob the artist of value. And
Mm.
that's just the system that we live in. And so I'm always going to be fighting for us. And I love the way that you fight for us. And I think transparency is a huge part of this fight.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. That's really true. And so at the moment, your Substack is free to read. People can subscribe, but also the way that Substack invites us in is people don't have to subscribe. They can just read it on the internet. And then you have pledges turned on, which that's a default setting in Substack. I don't know whether that was a conscious decision, if you wanted that energetic exchange to see who pressed that button, but
Mm.
do you have plans to monetize it? Like, do you know yet? Have you got thoughts around that side of it?
Yeah, I've started definitely thinking about it. We have the business set up with 8 different streams of income from
Well
different
done.
creative projects. And, streams of income for me as a creative, make me feel safe.
Yeah.
I never ever want to be someone who is reliant on an external like source, like a publishing house for my livelihood. I want to be a writer till the day I fucking die. I want to be a professional writer till the day I die. And the idea of like my that dream being in the hands of a publisher really frightens me. So I have 8 different sources of income and they're all writing related. And the idea of adding a ninth is a really beautiful thing. And Substack would be a great way to do that. I'm not ready yet. And I'm not sure how I want to approach it, and I want to do it very intentionally.
Mhm.
Um, I actually, and I would be interested in your thoughts here. A big part of me would love to use it almost like um, how do I explain this? I would love to have people be able to pledge to read my work, but to have nothing behind a paywall.
Mhm.
So it's a payment that says, I'm really appreciative of the huge amount of free work that you've given for over a decade. And I'm going to support you as a writer, like a patron, kind
Mhm.
of like Patreon. But again, like you're not going to get anything extra
Mhm.
because I love the idea of this platform being very accessible for me at the moment. And I like the idea that everything I share, is sent to my whole community and beyond. But I have had like inklings of that.
Mhm.
And I didn't intentionally leave pledges on, but it's always such a treat when someone does pledge.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a nice energetic as well because you're doing what you're doing anyway, and then someone's saying, "Oh, hey," and also like if you do turn on paid, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of Patreon models on Substack. You wouldn't think it, but there are. And there's an incredibly successful one. A guy called Simon who lives in the northeast of England as well, who has footnotes and tangents. Um, and he does a War and Peace read along every year. So my husband did it last year. So War and Peace, the book, is broken down, and everybody reads for
That's so
365
cool.
days. It's so cool. And everyone is delighted to have read War and Peace. I mean, it's such an act of service. It's
That's so
amazing.
sweet.
So cool. So Simon's awesome. My husband Dave really loved that process. He loved the community, all of that. And it was the Patreon model. But then he got a shout out on Gretchen Rubin's podcast and it went bananas. So I think now he's had to like just bring the drawbridge down a tiny bit just because of the amount of work, right? Because it was just such a lot of work with that influx of people. But yeah, he's an example that I always use because he was just very sure that that's what it was and that people would appreciate it enough, appreciate the work enough. And I love that. I love that someone can stand behind what they're doing as an act of service and know that people will pay anyway without
Mm,
any paywalls. So yeah, so the logistically you just turn paid subscriptions on and you just don't paywall anything. So
yeah.
people then just
Yeah.
have the option.
I don't know why that's calling my name. But it is.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice. And the main thing when you're a business owner and the other things that you have set up is just making sure people are clear, and you're great at that
Mm,
anyway. But sometimes people are like, wait, but I'm on this and I'm doing this and
yeah.
I'm getting an email from here and an email from there, and like, what's in this and how do I get that? And is that included in that? So there's a bit of that goes on
Yeah,
for the consumer.
communication. Yeah, interesting. I think the re main reason why I feel called to it is because, I've got so many book ideas. I love writing my Substack, and I don't want to have to create more. And I've had
Mm,
experience with Patreon. I was on
mm,
Patreon very early in my career and offering just the most ridiculous things to anyone who paid me anything because I believe that like I had to give them so much because they were
mm,
giving me money.
mm,
And I don't want to return to that for me at the moment. I would rather get to continue doing the work I do, a huge amount of it, which is already free, and then say with huge amounts of gratitude, like if you choose to support me, like what an incredible thing to do.
mhm.
My James has been suggesting though, because I know Substack have got plans to have membership stuff happening on there, that we move my membership. I have a creative collective that I meet once a week, and moving that over to Substack as well, which I'm less keen on, but I'm interested in and what they are going to offer.
Yeah, I think this is it, isn't it? It's like they're going to shift and change because they want to be viable. Like they want to be viable for themselves, but they want to be viable for us because we're all creating on there. So
Yeah,
it's interesting. And I run both a paid newsletter model and a membership model. And I really enjoy both spaces for different reasons. And I feel like the value of what I put there is the value of what I put there. Like it feels really good to be able to know that and honor that stuff and also to keep my community safe. That's been a big one for me. And this was just something that was very intuitive. And I know in your about page, like you talk about the community that you've created and people sharing inside of the comments and like taking up space there. So I think because I didn't really understand what was going to happen on the internet when I started building, like I was very
Mm.
new and I was working in the arts and cultural sector, not online. So I was purposefully cautious. Like I was cautious with my branding, calling it Sparkle on Substack. I'm like, that's going to put a lot of people off. That's great. That's what I
Mm.
want, right? So it's like just trying to keep people safe. So sometimes there's this bit where you don't want to have to like police spaces and stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a really, really interesting thing. I really
mm,
agree with that. I have a private Facebook page for my collective,
beautiful.
and it's great, and they take a lot of care of each other, thankfully. And I think
Mm,
almost, but having, I don't want to police that space.
yeah. Yeah, that's it, isn't it? That's the space around it also. Yeah, so anything's possible. And I think sitting with the muse of Substack is the bit, isn't it? Like, and it's great
Yeah,
you guys can have the conversations about that because it is something that will just be very clear when it's clear, isn't it? If you
yeah.
like, just that'll be the thing.
We'll just bite the bullet if and when
Yeah.
it happens. Actually, I feel like I disagree. It's never 100% clear. I'm always just like
Mm,
tired of not making the decision, and then I'm like, let's do it.
decision
I
tree,
love
yeah,
a bit
jump
of
in.
I love a bit of risk as well. I love a bit of a
Yeah.
new idea. I love going first in things as well. So if there's
Yeah.
I love doing something a bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. So I had a question from my 10-year-old son. So this
What
is
an
really
honor.
interesting. I know this is so interesting. So we were doing the school run this morning, he sits in the front with me, and I described a little bit about what you're about. I said, you've seen Amy's book, like I've been reading Amy's book and stuff like that. And he was like, and what is it that she does? And I said, she's an artist and she holds space for other artists to take up space. And I was like, what question would you ask? And he was like, is she on YouTube? So that was like the first bit. I was like, oh yeah, I think she's got YouTube. She's done a bit of that. So this was the conversation. He goes really quiet. And then he's like, what does it feel to be supported by all of those thousands of people? And I was like, okay, I can ask her that. I can ask her that, see what she says.
I think it's an absolutely amazing question. So please pass that along.
Hmm.
I I think I like that he added supported because I think there's two questions there. One could be, what does it feel like to be seen by
Mm,
so many people?
mm,
But the question, what does it feel like to be supported by so many people? It feels incredibly meaningful. And I think it is hard for my mind or for any human mind to compute when it gets to a certain number, like to understand how many people believe in you. It's hard to understand. I think sometimes also I find it almost too beautiful to look at. Like, when you receive beautiful messages saying, how much my work has changed their lives, like sometimes I find it literally hard to read. Like it's a really bright light and I like can't look quite directly at it. So sometimes I do feel myself like shying away from it because it's almost like too beautiful to see.
mm,
But I always feel aware of it. I always feel a deep gratitude for it. And I feel in community. And I don't know if that's like I've hit a sweet spot in terms of the size of my community. Um, and if you really were to get like when, celebrities don't speak like this, like people who are very, very seen and very, very beloved by people, they don't speak like this. I feel like I have relationships with these people
mm.
and I feel like I'm surrounded by family, like a very, very big creative family. And I'm very grateful for that.
Mhm. That is so, so beautiful. And also it's very reassuring and encouraging for me because as things have grown on Substack, like I brought a mailing list of 300 people in and things happened and people really wanted to subscribe and wanted more and all of the things and I've just poured that energy in. I've had to grow with it. So, and you'll have had that journey as well. Like, that kind of overnight arrival. And it's not quite overnight, but it sort of feels like you catch yourself just making a cup of tea and you're like, what happened? What happened? Like,
Mm.
am I safe? Is this okay? Like, is this what I'm here to do? Like, is this 2025? Like, there's a lot of questions sometimes where I just
Mm.
because it's so fast, like it moves quite quickly and we create quite quickly in a way. I feel it's quite quick. Um,
We are create. I mean, the amount of you can get feedback immediately. You just post,
mm,
share, and then immediately you have people witnessing you.
mm,
Like it's very, very quick. Whereas, in the past, we create, and then it takes ages for it to find its people. It's instantaneous, and I do think that can be very hard to process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to wrap up soon, but I'd love to ask you about your favorite pieces of art. Like, do you have favorite pieces in the home? Do you want to take a trip to see something? Like, do you have a favorite book? Like, is there something where you're like, oh, that just is my absolute favorite? Or is it more, are you more of a magpie? You've got collections of things.
Look at me. Look at me. Look at the background, Claire. I'm a huge magpie and I get very obsessive over things and then and they always stay with me, but then I find different things. So I have no good answer for favorite books. I have so many books in my home and I love so many of them so deeply. I'm trying to think of what I'm obsessed about right now. I'm really obsessed with Aurora through which who's a musician. She's a gorgeous musician, and I love her song "Through the Eyes of a Child." And I'm one
Okay.
of those people who just will repeat headphones, and I'll just listen to one song for weeks.
Mhm.
And so it was actually at the end of the Adolescence movie. It was the last
Oh,
song they
okay.
played.
Okay.
And so beautiful. So I've listened to that for weeks straight now. I'm obsessed with Martha Beck's book Beyond Anxiety at the moment. I think that is such a beautiful, beautiful, holy book that has helped
Mhm.
me as an artist and as an anxious person. Um, I have incredible pieces of art on my wall, but I cannot be made to whittle anything down, Claire, and I won't.
Beautiful. Thank you for that. And thank you for all the permission slips and all of your beautiful expression, both here today and online and everything that you do. You're so inspiring, Amie. I love your art. I love your book. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're on Substack, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you for being here.
Claire, thank you, and thank you for your art.